13 years have passed, but I do not age. Time has lost its effect on me. Oh, no, wait, never mind. Time seems to be moving, it's just that everything is a reboot now. It's like we're living in the 90s, light edition. Diet 90s. Well, at least we've got Jack.
Back to the past samurai Jack. Gotta do that. Back to the past samurai Jack. Jack. Gotta do that. Back to the past samurai Jack. Gotta do that. Back to the past samurai Jack. Jack. Gotta do that. Jack. Gotta do that. Jack. Samurai Jack.
That's right, if you somehow haven't heard, Jack is back. But not as some reboot or remake or piece of garbage or reimagining. No, Samurai Jack returns as a true continuation of the story, right from where we left off. Mostly. Now this continuation, as amazing as it is a short one. One final season. And as of making of this video, there's only one episode left, the true finale. And as awesome as that is, as stoked for it as I am, part of me is a little sad. Sad to see it end. Sad that there wasn't much left to go. I need more Samurai Jack. But then I remembered something. Something from the past. Samurai Jack, Shadow of a Coup. Released back in 2004, around the same time as the then final season of the show, this game will probably have anyone who considers himself a fan of the series looking at this game and asking the same three questions. First, there was a Samurai Jack game? Yep, I don't hear many people talking about it either. But yeah, in fact, there were two. This one, and one on the GBA. Second question, what's the story? After all, this game was based on the show, and if it takes place before the ending of the series, you know, the one we're finally getting after 13 years, well then obviously Jack can't go back in time at the end or defeat a coup. Unless this is some alternate universe or timeline or something. Well, don't worry, I'm not going to spoil it, but just rest assured that just like the Teen Titans game I reviewed a while back, this game does indeed feel like you're playing an episode of the show and fits in just fine. And it does capture a decent amount of what makes Jack great. And surprisingly, most of all, the humor. I mean, really, who would have thought?
Samurai Jack! Are you here to save our friends?
What has happened to your friends?
A coup forces them to play video games that rot their brains into mush.
Video games?
Rocks, man! It's so cool!
Except it melts your brain.
Yeah.
What an insidious evil. It must be stopped.
It's funny. It's funny because we're playing a video game. Yeah, don't worry, there's better stuff than that. Okay, and probably the most important question of all, since this is in fact a licensed game, how much does it suck? Well, that's a bit trickier. Samurai Jack Shadow of a Coup is a very straightforward hack and slash platformer, with its most defining traits being that it's based on the show, and that it's very, very average. But in a good way. Yeah, it's that good kind of average. That kind of average where your parents get you a game based on a show or toy you liked at the time, but then you come back to it years later and find out that it still kind of holds up. That kind of average where when renting a game for the weekend was still a thing, you went, you picked out your game, and then you actually managed to beat it the same weekend. Yeah, it's that kind of good. So, jumping right into this, I had relatively moderate hopes. And just for the record, I did not play this as a kid. I might have eBayed it, just because I wanted more samurai action in my life. So this is my first time playing it. So, you know what that means? No nostalgia here. But after the surprisingly enjoyable Teen Titans game, I gotta admit, I was hopeful. Until like 5 seconds in. After the game hits you with the usual fare of showing off the creators and engines and stuff, the game immediately cuts to this still. No animation, no build up, and most notably, no theme song. This does not bode well, especially after the Teen Titans game gave you a full intro with 4 different themes that randomly changed every time you turned on the system. And it doesn't help either that there was clearly a strict budget on this one. Retailing at only $25 at launch, it definitely shows. The game begins by putting you in a short, and thankfully not painful at all, tutorial stage. That really does boil down what each stage in the game is like. You collect items, you save people, and you get to the end. Like I said, it's pretty average. And once you get past the tutorial stage, you enter the first town, which acts like a hub for you to gain access to each level, allowing you to play most of the stages in whatever order you please until you've completed them all and can move on to the next major area. And well, that's the basic structure. Jack's travels take him to the city, a forest, and a volcano, just to name a few. And it's here that you'll probably notice that it's not that graphically impressive, even for the time. But that's not to say it isn't trying. Jack himself looks pretty cool, gaining access to multiple armors throughout the game. And as you take damage, the armor degrades, and even Jack's gi gets shredded, just like in the show. And all the animations and cool sword skills, they don't hurt either. Another factor is that the game is cel shaded, which does help to sell the cartoon aspect. And the levels themselves look pretty nice in this style, doing their best to capture the feel of the show. But let's be real here, that is a pretty tall order to fill, especially for the time. The backgrounds and environments in the show are truly amazing, some of the best in animation history. And these just pale in comparison. But if you think I'd belittle the game for that, well, then it simply isn't a fair comparison. But wasn't there another cel-shaded game that was pretty popular that I could compare this to? Yeah, this game came out 2 years after Wind Waker. So if that doesn't put things in perspective, then I don't know what will. No wait, yes I do. How about these guys? Yeah, I know the show had some odd looking creatures, but these things just look stupid. Why, hello there, I'm Derpy the Frog. Okay, so yeah, I can't do voices. But at the very least, this is funny. In part thanks to the dialogue. In a so bad it's good kind of way. Just see for yourself.
Look! It's a warrior! A great warrior! Will he eat us?
He looks nice.
Excuse me, I am looking for the tree spirit. Is he your leader?
He used to be. Now he just hides in his tree.
While Aku's robots burn the forest. I'm scared!
We need a new leader. Be our leader!
Yay!
Ah, so good. And I'm pretty sure that the bad is intentional, because the NPCs are voiced by some major pros. And of course, the cherry on top is the talented voice actor Phil Lamar, reprising his role as Samurai Jack. As does the late and great Mako... Oh, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that last name. But he returns as Aku. And really, what more could a fan ask for? Right. And that's actually really surprising, because the rest of the music in the game was made by the composers of the show. And to their credit, they all fit each level to a T. As, you'd probably expect. Although since the game doesn't focus on atmosphere and setup as much, the way the show does, it can't shine as brightly here. But it's still great. Especially that pause theme, which was the first track of the video, by the way. But let's cut to what really matters, shall we? The gameplay. And honestly, I like it. For a game that was probably made for a younger audience and definitely with a cheaper budget to boot, The level design and combat is actually pretty good. I mean, it lacks depth, but it's not bad. Each stage is pretty linear. There are enemies to fight, a few platforms that need the old Mario treatment, and a few branching paths that hide items and such, with the overall goal of having Jack fight his way to the end. But it's like I said, hidden across each stage, and hidden pretty well mind you, are totems, scrolls, and prisoners. Collecting the scrolls unlocks new sword combos. Collecting the totems will help you unlock more HP, strength, and zen, and rescuing the prisoners unlocks different sword power-ups like fire and lightning, which you think would be pretty cool, but unfortunately I found them to be pretty worthless. But you know, you're playing as Jack, so you gotta save the innocents. But regardless, reasons to explore are nice, especially when they power up Jack, because the main focus of this game is definitely on the combat. The combat here is actually pretty decent. Again, it's not deep, but it's enjoyable. Jack gains a multitude of combos he can use to cut down his foes. Arrows, he's got shurikens, fast strikes, power strikes, and he can even reflect bullets. Tell me that isn't cool. And he even has his own version of bullet time, which is what the Zen is for. The bullet time mode is actually extra useful because it makes your strikes do a lot more damage when in that state, making it ideal for bringing down those more resilient foes. But it's all these foes that actually caught my eye while playing, because it's the way the AI works that makes things a bit, well, above average. All of the enemies have pretty basic patterns to be sure, but what makes it work is how they react. For example, early on, the best way to defeat enemies with guns is to just take a defensive stance and wait for them to shoot at you and then just reflect their bullets. But later, enemies start recognizing that and they start firing tasers to stun you instead, and then promptly shoot you. Douchebags. And this is an especially good tactic that they like to use when you're surrounded. Another trait worth mentioning is how the enemies react to each other. When the enemies are close to each other or blocking each other, they actually won't shoot, because they can actually hit each other. And personal note here, I love it when enemies can hurt each other or get hurt by stage hazards. It's a great mechanic. What makes this fun is that only some of the enemies care about their allies. A nice little tactic you can use for yourself. But unfortunately, the thing is, if everything worked so well, this game would probably be better remembered. Or at the very least, it would be more than just average. Let's face it, this game has problems. Besides those, one of the major ones being the slowdown. While it doesn't happen too much, there are times when the game just gets bogged down, with the worst of it happening in the forest stage early on, even when there's not that much going on. On top of that, and maybe it was just bad luck on my part, but I had the game freeze on me. Twice. And as I said, I got this off of eBay. Sealed. Look at this disc. This should not be freezing. The rest of the problems aren't so much technical issues as they are design issues. First off, the game is a bit on the easy side. Again, probably meant for kids, but even on hard, most of my deaths were just a result of me screwing up my jumps, not from my foes. And speaking of easy, the bosses are just a joke, and considerably less threatening than a horde of enemies are. That is for sure. And that's an extra punch to the gut since a few of the bosses are fan favorites that were clearly shoehorned in, you know, just because it'd be cool.
I know you. That's right. It's me again.
But what I see bothering players the most has got to be the cheap shots. And trust me, you are going to get blindsided a lot. And at first, I thought this was an issue with the camera, but it's not. It's how the enemies spawn. Enemies spawn in some of the cheapest ways, with many appearing right behind you after you cleared them out. And here's a pro tip. Whenever you enter a new room or turn a corner and can't see what's around you, block. Always block. Because there is always a bullet coming straight at you. Every time. Though, on the plus side, it feels pretty badass when you're blocking shots you didn't even see coming. Enemies do keep you on your toes, but still, it's cheap. Though the game doesn't shy away from handing out armor and health, like Tumblr doesn't shy away from spewing out hate for Joshi. So, the damage really shouldn't be a problem. But still, when you add together the cheap hits, the slowdown, the subpar visuals, and the general ease of it all, it's very hard for Samurai Jack Shadow of a Coup to really stand out or elevate itself to anything above just average. And even for fans. While it is awesome to get to take control of our favorite samurai and have a bona fide bout with the Shogun of Sorrows himself, the game doesn't really add anything. It's basically just like another episode of the show, and it doesn't really affect the overall plot. And unlike Teen Titans, we're actually getting an end to this series, so it doesn't hold as much value now. However, as I said before, this game is the good kind of average. It still manages to capture some of the feel of the show. The cheesy dialogue is pretty entertaining, the controls are solid, and honestly, while it may not be the deepest combat out there, it's still enjoyable. Not every hack and slash out there has to be Devil May Cry or Bayonetta to be fun. And that's what Samurai Jack is. Fun. Sure, it may not be that innovative or all that deep, and it's definitely not going to set your world on fire, but sometimes simple is best. And clocking in at about 5 hours of play, this is a good title to pop in between your larger, more complicated adventures. Realistically, I don't see veteran players or the hardcore getting too much out of this one. But if you like hack and slash adventures, enjoy simple mechanics, or just a fan of Samurai Jack, and you manage to find this game on the cheap, I recommend picking it up, because it is still a solid title, and I think sometimes we all just want to return to the past.
And undo the future that is Aku.
I've been playing way too much Breath of the Wild, thinking that hitting the chickens will... Oh crap.